Hey, GMB update came out. They had a new regiment. Stumbling, tripping, eating shit. New map. I think it's like Moscow or something. Some balance changes. Yeah, look, they nerfed the heavy saber and bugle. They're still good though. They also buffed the carbine's accuracy, so it's finally more accurate than the normal pistol. Yeah, apparently it wasn't before. A new zombie that is incredibly fun to fight one-on-one, and also a new subclass, the cuirassier, which is also fun, but most importantly, a new officer melee. The Spontoon. The Spontoon is probably my favorite addition ever to Guts and Black Powder, even more so than the air rifle. I believe it is a balanced side grade that encourages a very fun, powerful, and satisfying playstyle. There we go. I could just end the video here if I wanted to, but apparently some people seem to think that the Spontoon is bad. Horrible even. Okay, well those people are a minority, but my point still stands. It seems like a lot of people simply just don't understand how powerful the Spontoon can be in the right situations. So come, let me explain to you why the Spontoon is good, actually. The Spontoon is a melee weapon for the officer that costs 500 francs, and contrary to what people believe before the update, does not replace your pistol. That's right, you can rock any of the 3 primaries with this thing, which is pretty dope if you ask me. The Spontoon can swing in all directions with a downswing rate of 0.5 seconds, which is faster than the base saber by, 0.05 seconds, so that exists, I guess. It's also massive, with a reach of a whopping 9 studs. This allows you to not only hit zombies from a safe distance, but even melee barrels and survive, which can actually be pretty helpful in practice. Like the saber, it does 30 damage, has a headshot multiplier of 2.3, and has 3 penetration. Well, 2-4, you may be asking, this seems like a pretty massive upgrade so far, so does it have any downsides? And I'm glad you asked. First of all, you can't charge with this weapon. Hold on, let me explain. Instead of a charge meter, the Spontoon has a Holdfast meter that, when activated, casts a glowing square around the officer. Any bayonet, pike, or fellow Spontoon user inside the square can stand still to brace, dealing pretty much instant kill damage to anything they touch, just like a standard charge. But that's not all though, as not only do the players inside the square receive a 33% damage resistance, including the officer who used the ability, the Holdfast ability also lasts more than 2 times as long as the standard charge, at a staggering 20 seconds. This makes the Spontoon an amazing tool defensively, as you can still use your gun while granting other players this buff, allowing you to deal with bombers and igniters so your teammates don't have to worry about them. Lastly, the Spontoon passively doubles the radius of other officers' charges, meaning people who are further away end up getting the buff too. Doesn't come into play often, though it is an upside nonetheless. But hey, you, come here. Want to know a secret? Well, come close, alright? The Spontoon has a bayonet charge. Well, that's it for the stats. I tried to explain them the best I could, and I think I succeeded. I think. Excuse me. Now, that's all well and good, but how does one actually use the Spontoon? Let's start off with the melee itself before getting into the Holdfast ability. In my humble opinion, the Spontoon, as a melee, with its extra range and slightly faster downswing, is far better than the saber. You just have an easier time dealing with literally every zombie type in the game, including bombers. Not to mention the upswing has a very good hitbox for hitting headshots, which, again, makes it so much easier and safer to clear hordes of zombies. This extra range can also be used to kill zombies through walls, which allows you to safely pop bombers without taking any damage. Now, what makes the Spontoon great compared to something like the pike is that you don't actually get any slowness penalty for having it equipped. I guess the officer is just built different or something, I don't know. And look, I'm not saying I dislike the pike or anything. Moving on. Speaking of pikes, charging! Yeah, this thing can charge alright, and that alone was pretty much all I needed to know before buying it. This now makes Officer the only other class besides Infantry that can activate a bayonet charge, which is pretty cool if you ask me. Alright, so the melee itself is good, but what about the Holdfast ability? Oh god, the Holdfast ability. Well, first of all, always make sure you have a bayonet, pike, or other Spontoon user on your team. Spontoon isn't useless if you don't have these players, though it'll always be better if you do. Secondly, you should only use Holdfast during holdout situations, or if you're backed into a corner, specifically near choke points, as it allows your pokey people, to kill any zombie before they can even react. Just watch out for igniters, as they can still pose a problem if they're not dealt with soon enough. And this sounds amazing. Surely there's some sort of catch, right? Right? Well, it turns out there's a big one. The Spontoon's effectiveness relies heavily on the intelligence and loadouts of your randomly selected teammates. There's no getting around it. Trying to coordinate with complete strangers who have no interest in helping you at all is pretty difficult, and it unironically holds back this weapon's potential by a lot. Also, hey, fellow Spontoon users, make sure to actually stand still when using Holdfast, otherwise you'll just be throwing your teammates under the bus. Best thing to do when encountering these players is to just be nice and tell them that they need to stand still to get the buff. But sometimes even that doesn't seem to work. In these situations, it's best to switch off of the Spontoon and back to the normal saber, as the stock charge will just be doing more in these situations. However, this doesn't mean the Spontoon is useless without any pokey people. Sorry. Remember, everyone within the Holdfast AoE gets a 33% resistance to all forms of damage, which is the same as the new Curious item. Sort of. It doesn't stack, by the way, in case you were wondering, but that's probably for the better. That damage resistance can come in clutch, especially when used in areas like the Copenhagen Water Bucket objective, and just in general if you're backed into a corner at low health, or about to get zapped, or if you... well, let's just say don't entirely trust your teammates. Alright, so far I've been judging the Spontoon's effectiveness based entirely on how well it performs on objective mode, which is what most people have been doing, and is partially why everyone thinks it's pretty average at best. And I can understand that. I can also understand why someone would prefer the stock saber on objective, as they're just going to be moving around a lot more. But what about the other two modes? The Spontoon is good on holdout, who would have guessed? Since the mode is just a really long holdout section, the holdfast ability will nearly always be beneficial. The Spontoon on St. Petersburg is especially powerful, as you can easily take out cuirassiers even when they're charging. Also, here's an epic pro tip: you can actually aim your weapon before bracing, which is especially useful for the Spontoon, as its hitbox while bracing isn't the best. Readying an attack before bracing, whether it be up or down, increases the Spontoon's range immensely, which will never not be great. You can also let go about someone while doing this, allowing for even more range in case, you know, he appears.
Hold steady!
It's small, but it does genuinely help, especially when fighting runners or cuirassiers. You can also do this. I don't know why you would do this, but you can. Anyways, I'd say the Spontoon is a great weapon for holdout, even if you don't have bayonet or pike users, as that damage resistance can really come to clutch in sticky situations. I'd argue that the stock charge is slightly better if you want to regain lost ground, but it's still powerful nonetheless. That just leaves Endless. Oh god, Endless. The Spontoon is a monster on Endless. That's all I have to say, really. Want to camp in the most unorthodox spots possible? You can do that. Want to nearly instantly kill hordes of wave 100 zombies at a press of a button? Go ahead, pal. The Spontoon opens up so many new camping spots for every Endless map, which is one of the reasons I love it so much. Some of my personal favorite spots include this 2-story house in La Haye, the doorway in La Ferme, inside any house on Hougoumont, along with this house in Tyrol, but you can pretty much camp anywhere you want now. You're still obviously held back a bit by your teammates' experience and whether or not they decide to use the right items, but when it works, it fucking works. So, in conclusion, the Spontoon is a great side grade for the officer that strives on Endless and holdout sections, though only when you have competent teammates, and only when they're using the right weapons. The charge will always be a more consistently helpful ability, and that's okay. But, hold on. Holdfast affects other Spontoon users, right? What if you somehow got your teammates to stack the Spontoon on Endless? I mean, surely it'll happen every once in a while, right? What if you could easily coordinate with your teammates through, I don't know, voice chat or something? What if you had each Spontoon user all use their Holdfast one after the other in perfect sync and harmony? What if you had friends? Next segment, Holdfast chaining. Now, listen, I don't like to label weapons as overpowered because I actually think the majority of weapons in Guts and Black Powder are pretty fairly balanced. However, Spontoon chaining is genuinely way too fucking good for how easy it is to pull off, and I think it should be nerfed in some way. The two ways you can go about this is to either decrease the duration of Holdfast depending on how many Spontoon users are on your team, which would be pretty lame, or you could have something like a 1-minute cooldown to all Spontoon users after someone activates Holdfast. However, I would be lying if I said this wasn't fun as hell. And it also encourages and requires team coordination to be effective, which is just mwah, perfecto, I love it. This strategy is so effective that I managed to get to wave 63 on a mobile La Ferme server, and I don't even know if that's the highest round we got to because I eventually just left out of boredom. I nearly did the same thing on a mobile La Haye server too, however I may or may not have died in a Pretty embarrassing way, but that's fine. We just won't talk about that, alright? This is where the Spontoon is most effective, and it is a load of fun. I highly encourage you to load into an endless server with a few friends and just see which areas are good to camp. Seriously, nothing is off the table with this strategy, and it's honestly reinvigorated my love for this game. So, what's the verdict? Yeah, 10 out of 10. Nay, 11 out of 10. The Spontoon is not only a decent weapon for casual objective, but an insane tool for high wave endless. Its playstyle may be more defensive than the stock saber, but that doesn't mean it can't be fun or even addicting. Like I said, go out there, find some spots, the world is your oyster, and the Spontoon shall be the tool in which you use to crack it open and unlock its secrets. It may not be better than the saber in every situation, but that's okay with me. It is a situational side grade, after all. And on that note, I'd say it's time to end the video. Remember to like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you'd be so kind, join my Discord to sit around and do nothing, and remember to hold steady, soldier.